inheriting the victory. Could that be Andy Verdoïa's case in race 1 here today? Did Maya Smith and Locatelli make the wrong call there to try and switch onto wet tyres off the final turn? They knew that if they didn't do so, they would get swallowed up by the pack. The likes of Fellini, who was among the first riders to come into the pits for wet tyres, will probably be feeling desperately unfortunate at this stage that the red flag has been brought out, because he could potentially have been one of the biggest riders to gain had the race continued.
Well, probably the perfect time to pit was the next lap, and that's when we saw the likes of Smith and Myas and Locatelli continue for one more lap. But just looking at our commentary box window, we're up at the very top of the grandstand, overlooking the pit lane and the paddock, and our line of vision is basically completely gone now. It's absolutely horrendous conditions out there. We can barely see over towards the paddock at this stage as well, so really very difficult for the riders. And Race Direction making the right decision to put out the red flag. You can see that for Andy Verdoïa. Look at the amount of water that's coming off his bike. That's at 15 miles an hour. So it really is just right on that limit for these tyres and for these bikes, and certainly no real choice but to red flag that race.
And it's time to call in the boats, I think, for rescue. We will be, based on the standings, at the last completed timekeeping point, which is exactly what I said previously. And as Steve said previously, that looks as though we're quids in if your name is Andy Verdoïa.
And like I said at the time as well, if you're the likes of Myas and Smith and you've gone past that 2/3 distance, it clearly would have paid off to have stayed out on track, but they came into the pits, and we'll wait and see what exactly happens for their timing points, whether or not the pit lane is going to be enough to make sure that they're able to still stand on the podium. As it stands right now, the results are giving us as Andy Verdoïa winning the race, Lucas Myas and Kyle Smith on the podium, Andrea Locatelli down in 4th spot, which will mean that he holds a 92-point advantage over Jules Cluzel, a 99-point advantage over Lucas Myas in the championship standings.
So our championship fight will go on to tomorrow, just by the virtue of the fact that Myas has finished inside those top 9 places, and Locatelli will still have work to do. It'll be fairly clear-cut. He'll need to score 9 points and make sure that Luca Myas is behind him to guarantee that title. That's presuming that the results are confirmed as we see them. Usually we get a flick of a switch almost. It comes up that the race result is confirmed on our screen once those positions are confirmed. So at the moment we're looking at Verdoïa, Myas and Smith as our potential podium trio. Myas is looking and trying to understand what has gone on there.
Yeah, you can see Jonathan Ray on the right, Fabien Faure in the middle, and Lucas Myas, like you said, trying to understand exactly what's going on there. But for Myas, as it stands right now, he's finished second. He's picked up 20 points, but just drama in the super sport class. And Kyle Smith.
So Kyle Smith is just saying that Myas and him were almost like having a conversation out on track through hand gestures. Should we come in? I don't know. And then eventually, obviously, they've both made the decision to come in. And you could see the second half of the lap, actually, they were gesturing to one another, shrugging their shoulders and so on. They just didn't know what to do, the two of them out there. At one stage, it looked as though they were appealing for the red flag to come out, but it's come out just a little bit too late for those two, potentially.
Well, to be honest, it's come out at the perfect time if they're able to get away with podium finishes, because they would have fallen down the order. They would have lost an awful lot of time at that stage, and that's where for the likes of Fellini, he's down in 17th spot on the timing screens right now, but he was the first of the riders that had made a pit stop, and he would have been very well placed to have moved up through the order. So a bit unfortunate there for Fellini, and certainly there's going to be some riders that will feel that they were a bit unlucky, some riders that will probably be a little bit fortunate, but for all those riders, the one good thing is in conditions like this, we didn't have any incidents, because it's very easy to have a big crash in these kind of conditions, and you've got to just take the approach of sometimes these kind of things can happen in racing. And certainly for Locatelli, that it's pretty clear an act of God was what kept him from winning this race potentially, and that's the way it can go sometimes in racing. But for Andy Verdoïa, he's been able to gamble on it, stay out and hope for a red flag, and it looks like he's been able to get his wish and pick up a Supersport race win.
So Kyle Smith in third position. So your bet pays out, Steve. Smith up on the podium. Luca Mayas takes second position, and Andy Verdoïa in first. We're still waiting for official confirmation of that, but that's certainly how both Steve and I read the regulations. No restart, that is confirmed along the top of your screen. More than 2/3 of the race distance was completed when the red flag came out. Right decision for the red flag to come out, because you could see Verdoïa coming through the lake at turn number 10, where the bottom of the tyre was completely covered in the deep pool that had developed around the circuit. And Verdoïa, just by staying out, it's almost as though he's gone, do you know what, I'll go the opposite to everyone else and stay out on track. And in the end, that may well have paid dividends. We saw into the Bardell-Evan brothers Yamaha outfit. They didn't seem too upset about that for Locatelli, but it was interesting that Locatelli, inevitably as the race leader, but also the championship leader, rolled off as soon as that rain came. He was not messing around with any potential risks in the latter stages, even though that may now have cost him his winning run.
Yeah, the one thing for Locatelli is he's clearly thinking in terms of the championship rather than any of those outright records. He knows what he was able to do during the course of that race. What's interesting for me, though, is, and you can see here for Andy Verdoïa and his team down there to have picked up that win. A little bit fortuitous, but you've still got to be in the right place at the right time, and Andy certainly was. The good thing for Verdoïa is it's not like he's come from the back of the field. He qualified in 13th spot, started on the 4th row of the grid, so he did a good job in the qualifying session. And like what we saw at times during the Supersport 300 season last year, able to have a cool head, able to make a right decision, and he's been able to make it work. So for Andy Verdoïa, there might be an asterisk beside it. For other people, he's just going to be happy he's a World Supersport race winner.
He can't believe it. We can't believe it. Heart beating at 10 to the dozen. Andy Verdoïa, quite incredibly, looks set to claim his first Supersport race victory. And Verdoïa, who started 12th on the grid there, having qualified in P13, has